Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I want to update you about some interesting things that have been found and have occurred in the case of missing boys Orrin and Orson West out of California City, California. As I mentioned in a previous video about the search for the boys, private investigator Bill Garcia from Bill Garcia Investigative Services joined in the search for the boys pro bono. He claims to have been involved in many searches for missing children in the past, so he took a strong interest in this case. If you are aware of his involvement, then you may already know that his investigation led him to Tehachapi, where he claims he was told that a woman saw the boys walking with two adults in an Albertsons parking lot on, I believe he said, Christmas Eve. So, he said he planned to follow up on this lead, and he moved his search efforts to that city. This is according to a post he made on his Facebook page called Bill Garcia on January 11th of 2021, just 4 days ago. Then, on January 13th, just 2 days later, 23 ABC News ran a clip of both Bill Garcia explaining how he got involved in the case and the Cal City police chief, who says in the clip that Garcia needs to tread lightly so as not to impede their police investigation. He also says that his concern is that he's not out there spreading false information. He says he has no idea where Garcia is getting the information leading him to Tehachapi. Then on January 14th, Bill Garcia released the following statement on another post on his Facebook page. In response to California City Chief of Police John Walker's statement, Bill Garcia Investigative Services has been providing pro bono investigations for missing and abducted children for 28 years and has never been accused of fabricating witness sightings or been threatened by law enforcement. In any event, I'm concluding our efforts and pray that officials will follow up properly. Good karma to all. Then, in a follow up article by 23 ABC News, Garcia said, I've run into this type of situation in the past. It doesn't get better, and it only spirals out of control. I recognize what is starting to happen with law enforcement, and it's not productive for me to continue under these types of declining circumstances. According to Garcia, the search he was coordinating for the boys in Tehachapi on Saturday is now called off. So now, the private investigator who was donating his time to find the boys is off the case. Which is strange to me, because even though I completely understand that he doesn't want anyone interfering with the police investigation, he stated in an earlier press conference that he wouldn't refuse help from anyone who wanted to assist in the search for the boys. Even though he did state in his interview on the news that Garcia had the right to search for the boys if he wants to, he didn't sound like he was too excited about it. Why not offer to work closely with Garcia, to have the extra help, but to make sure he doesn't impede the investigation? That leaves me scratching my head. Unless he knows something about Garcia that I don't, but it seems to me that they can use all the help they can get. They have two missing little boys, and they've been gone way too long. The police chief already made it very clear in a press conference that Cal City has a small police department and that they didn't even have the resources to do a proper search of the desert. So why isn't he ecstatic to have the extra help? If you have any thoughts on this, please let me know in the comments, because I'm confused. He says that multiple agents are working on the case, and no offense, but they haven't recovered the boys yet. So maybe they could use the help. I mean, they haven't even made an arrest yet, even though one of the West's neighbors has video footage of Trezell West on the evening he claims the boys went missing that shows that he barely even looked for them. He mostly just stood in his front yard waiting for the police to show up. He wasn't even seen looking in the big open lot next to their home. So how concerned could he have been that his little boys went missing? If you don't know the surveillance video footage I'm referring to, I shared the news about it in a previous video. It's on the YouTube channel AV Watchmen United We Stand, and he goes to the neighbor's house and shows us the neighbor's video. Jacqueline West wasn't even seen on the video coming out of the house to look for the boys at all, even though she says herself in their interview that they both felt they needed to be out looking. Now, I haven't been very vocal about what I thought of their interview, partly because I didn't want to falsely accuse them in the beginning in case I was wrong, even though I think they absolutely did something to those precious boys, but also because I study body language and behavioral patterns in people, and I tend to judge things kind of harshly sometimes. So, I decided to sit back and see what everyone else got from their interview before I said anything. Aside from the obvious signs of deception that they were screaming, Trezell crossing his arms over his body in a defensive position and never breaking from it the entire interview, and Jacqueline rocking back and forth to soothe herself, I saw some other things right off the bat that bothered me. Now, I watched their interview on the YouTube channel AV News Crew, and he was out there with the adoptive parents when they did the interview. So he captured the minutes before the interview started that weren't shown on the news or on channels that edited the video straight to when the interview started. So watching Trezell and Jacqueline standing there as the media set up their mics and cameras threw off what I considered to be a huge red flag right off the bat, even before they ever said a word. You might not think it's much, but to me, it speaks volumes. Now, before I get into it, I just want to let those of you who don't know how that interview came to be, how it happened. From what I understand, it was not a scheduled media interview. From what I learned, the boy's biological mother knocked on the West's door, demanding answers, and she didn't like the ones she got. So the Wests finally came outside and made an impromptu statement to the press. That was why Trezell said he spoke with the boy's mother earlier, and he tried to tell her how sorry he was. So it was an unplanned interview. I kept that in mind when I went back to review it a few more times. The very first thing I noticed was that the whole time Trezell and Jacqueline were standing there waiting to speak, Trezell never once looked at Jacqueline or made eye contact with her. Not at all. And I noticed that because she kept looking at him as she rocked back and forth, as if she was worried about what they would say, what he would say. But he never turned to look at her at all, almost as if he was not happy with her. For the full 3 minutes that they were filmed prior to the interview starting, Trezell just stood still with his arms locked across his body and he didn't move. He was totally focused on everything the media was doing, completely ignoring Jacqueline as she rocked back and forth and kept looking at him as if she was worried. They weren't unified. She wasn't standing close to him. He wasn't putting his arms around her to comfort her. They weren't talking amongst themselves about what they would ask people to do to help. Nothing. They weren't comforting each other at all. They were each comforting themselves. Him with his arms crossed in defensive position, and her rocking back and forth. No unity. Not parents united in grief and disbelief. The only time he even looks at her is right before they start speaking, like, "You go first." Then, because Jacqueline is scared and has no idea what to say, she starts thanking everyone for all their help. Then she just stops talking. No desperate plea for her boy's return. Nothing. Almost as if she either doesn't know what to say or she's afraid to say anything. Then, when they're asked to tell the reporters what happened when the boys went missing, they both hesitate and exhale loudly as if they don't even want to go into it. Then all she can muster up is, "From our yard," and she looks over that way. Then stops speaking again. She strikes me as afraid to speak, for fear of saying something she shouldn't. Now, these are just my opinions, guys. You might not agree with me. Then she lets Trezell say what happened, and looks down and rocks back and forth as if she knows it isn't true, or she's hearing it for the first time herself. He's very brief about what happened, then immediately goes into complimentary mode, saying again how great and wonderful everyone was that night, turning the attention away from what happened and turning it on to the searchers. They made a point to say that the cops said the best were out searching for the boys. So they're so grateful, trying to deflect from their story and focus on something else. Still, no desperate plea for the boys' safe return. Then I noticed how focused they were on every vehicle that passed them by during the interview. Every time they heard a car coming, they turned to look at it, showing they weren't focused on getting their story out, but on everything going on around them, as if they just wanted to get done and get out of there. If they were focused, pleading, and concentrating on getting a message out to the public, they wouldn't have been distracted by every passing vehicle. I know it seems insignificant, but to me it's not. Equate it to when you're standing in front of someone speaking to them, and they're not paying much attention to you because they're distracted by everything going on around them. And it's obvious that their attention isn't on you and on what you're saying. They didn't want to be there. Then Trezell says the boys are going to be in that area, and he would like to go into the houses, but he just doesn't want to invade anyone's privacy. Such a polite guy. He just stated that he knows the boys are going to be in that area where they live, so he knows they must be in someone's house. But he just doesn't want to appear impolite and invade their privacy to find out? Cover your ears for a second. Fuck invading their privacy. You think someone took your kids, but you don't have the balls to be rude enough to pound on doors and try to get them back? I call BS, and I know you do too. What a statement to make. And funny, I learned that none of the neighbors saw him out looking at all. As a matter of fact, the surveillance footage doesn't show him knocking on even one neighbor's door. Guess the guy's real worried about appearing rude. I don't know. I'm a pretty polite person. But if I think someone took my kids, the neighborhood's going to see a whole new side of me that they aren't going to like too much. 'Cause I ain't going to worry about being polite. I'm going to do what it's going to take to find out who has my kids. Then, when the reporter asks how they feel about the bio mother suspecting that they had something to do with the boy's disappearance, they were awfully nice about it, weren't they? Geez, they would think the same thing. Totally understandable. Agree with the bio mom to appear to identify with her? Now, maybe it's just me, but if I didn't have anything to do with it, I would say she can think that all she wants. Then I'd defend myself. Then Trezell tried to, but he said something I found very interesting instead. He said, "That's exactly the point. And if we can find our babies, then guess what? That's no." He has no trouble speaking before this question, but all of a sudden he's tripping over his words. But listen to the truth in his statement. If we can just find them, then we didn't do anything to them. Sure, if you didn't, they could be found, but he knows they won't be. Interesting how he does that. Then again, he goes back to so agreeable with the police taking all their tech because they wanted to rule them out, which Trezell says is completely understandable. Now, I heard on another YouTube channel, Crenshaw Incorporated, who has direct contact with the bio mother's family, that Trezell and Jacqueline refused to take polygraph tests. Wouldn't that be a really good way to rule them out? Which Trezell says is completely understandable? Then, when asked if they willfully gave police their technology, their car, etc., Jacqueline immediately answers yes, while shaking her head no. And it was a big no, too. She even turned her body to do it. Then Trezell says they even asked police to search their home, as Jacqueline is rocking back and forth and looking behind her like, is it almost over? Then the reporter asks what they took, and Trezell answers, but then he and Jacqueline both quickly turn and look behind them again as a van approaches. Man, they're jumpy. Then they divert attention back to the searchers again, being so complimentary, stating that they knew the best were out there. They just knew they had the best people helping. Then, when asked when they called the police, Jacqueline says, after we searched around, and points to the areas all around her, as if she actually went outside to search, which we know she did not do, thanks to the neighbor's surveillance video of that evening. And video doesn't lie. But apparently they do. Just a few of my own observations from their interview. I think Jacqueline's afraid to speak up. She has to be. How are you going to be okay with your children being taken away from you until police find out what happened to the boys? That alone should make a good mother crack. I personally think if they interrogated her good and hard alone, she would tell. I think she's scared. Scared of Trezell, scared of what's going to happen to them, and scared to say anything. Again, just my opinion. Before the interview, she kept looking for him to look at her, almost pleading with him, with her eyes, but he wouldn't. She was on her own, and she better not screw up. Okay, enough of my opinions. Now I'm going to lead you to a YouTuber who says she has some facts. This video was sent to me by my dear friend Jen, who knows where to find all the good stuff on the internet. So I'm lucky she puts up with me. The video is called Trezell West's Friend Speaks Out, says he only has 4 kids. Update, Orrin and Orson West missing. And it's on a YouTube channel called 10 to Life. That's the number 10 to life. Apparently this YouTuber is reaching out to people who were involved in the real estate transaction from when the Wests bought their Cal City home to see what info she can find out. She also has photos of inside the West's home and both garages. She offers a lot of interesting information in her video, and it was a live she recorded, so she has people calling in with good info also. One woman who called in pointed out that there's a window on the back of the attached garage on the outside, but no window inside the garage, suggesting that there may be a secret room of sorts in the garage. She also spoke with a woman who claimed to be a friend of Trezell's at the time they moved to Cal City, and she said he told her he only had 4 children. He also told her that he wanted to move to Cal City to get off the grid. She makes some excellent points in her video, like the fact that she found out that Trezell claimed to be an entrepreneur, only making around $10,000 per year. Then how in the hell do you afford to buy a house in Cali? There's no way. If that were the case, I wouldn't be doing this video right now. I'd be packing my bags to move there. I would love to have some beaches, palm trees, and warm weather in my life. So if you want to hear about the information she's found in this case, you should check out her video. It's worth a watch. So, that's all the update I have for you right now. But I'll keep sharing things as I find them. In the meantime, please keep praying and sending positive thoughts out for the boys that they're found safe soon. As time goes on, we have to make sure they aren't forgotten. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.